Good afternoon from me, everybody, and welcome back to another video. If you're new here, my name is Jules. I like to play around with colours. I am so inspired by all things colourful, hence the channel name. And if you enjoy videos about colour, videos about sketching and illustration and watercolours specifically right now, then please do consider subscribing because I produce new videos every single week. It is a beautifully grey, gloomy October day outside, and so I thought, what better day to film a video about colours that I would choose for an autumn watercolour palette. I know that autumn has a lot of colours that are very inspiring to people. A lot of people post a lot of beautiful paintings of autumn leaves when the colours start changing, and it's just a very inspiring season. So I have picked 12 colours today from my collection that I think would be really suitable for autumn. They're all from Roman Szmal, which if you've been around on my channel for a while, you'll know it's one of my favourite brands. And I thought we could have a look at them together and then maybe have a look at some mixes afterwards. So I have put together this wheel with 12 slightly uneven sections because I'm not getting my protractor out for a YouTube video. And I'm going to zoom in and we can get started with my autumn colours for 2023. So there are a few colours that are really iconic for autumn, I think, and a lot of them are things that everybody would think of. And I think one of the most compelling is these bright yellow leaves that come out like really first thing when the seasons start to change. And the colour that evokes this most for me is Hansa Yellow Medium, PY74 from Roman Szmal, I believe. And it's such a beautiful transparent yellow. I love it so much. It mixes so well to make oranges and also greens. And I ummed and ahed about which colours to include. Obviously, like narrowing it down to just 12 is not super easy. But this one, in the end, I couldn't say no. It's just too perfect of a yellow. Like, I have seen leaves this year that are this colour already. And I think that it's just so versatile that if you're using this as a sort of limited palette, then you would really appreciate the range of options it gives you to have this colour in your palette. I know this is not a new opinion. It's often a yellow that's included as a standard in a lot of basic palettes. But I think that it might be a little underrated as a result of that. You know, it's just so simple, but yet at the same time, it's so beautiful. It's important not to overlook things just because they're standard. So I've tried to wash this colour out a little bit towards the centre of the circle so we can see a little bit more in a wash there. I didn't have any plans of how I was going to swatch before I came into this video. I'm just making it up, but this seems to make sense to me. So next up, if you're making a palette of colours for autumn and you're using Roman Szmal paints, then you're basically required to include their colour called Autumn Green, which is a mixture of Nickel Azo Yellow, Quinacridone Magenta, and Cobalt Green Deep. So it's a really stunning colour, and I just had to include this one. I think I included this colour in my video that I made a while back about getting the most out of your granulating watercolours, and I think that video was quite fun to make, and I think that a lot of people have found it quite helpful. So if you're curious about that and enjoy looking at colour separating watercolours but sometimes don't know how to use them, then do check out that video because maybe it will help you too. But as you can see, this cobalt green is super granulating in this mixture, and it washes out to a really nice delicate sort of light green. But I find that the texture and the colour separation in this colour, they're just magical, and it really does, like, they named it so well. It really is iconic, this sort of autumn colour. On the other end of the green spectrum, we have Perylene Green Deep. So I know that a lot of people are familiar with Perylene Green, PBK 31, but this is PBK 32, so it's sort of sister pigment, if you like. And the reason that I chose it over regular Perylene Green is because it's a little bit warmer, a little bit more on the grey-brown side. Perylene Green is a beautiful deep green, but tends a little bit more towards the blue side, whereas this green is a little bit more neutral, and it really reminds me of those kind of dark mossy tones that you get in autumn, but I think it would still mix really beautifully. Maybe you can already tell, if you're familiar with Perylene Green, maybe you can already tell that in a wash this is a little bit more muted, a little bit less vibrant of a green. And I think it's just a really stunning tone. And if you love Perylene Green and you're in the mood to treat yourself to a new paint, then I would not hesitate to pick this one up. So sticking with the darker tones, these three look so beautiful together, don't they? But sticking with the darker tones, I wanted to include a couple of blues, and the blue that I chose to include was actually one that I picked up in my most recent art haul, which was a really big one, so I highly recommend you go check that out. It also had a lot of new paints in it. And it's this indigo, so Roman Szmal's version of indigo. And it's Indian Throne Blue, PB60 and black. And I just thought that for autumn, maybe this super deep blue tone would fit better than some of the other brighter blues that you find when you think of spring and summer. And even winter, I feel like goes back into brighter blues again. But autumn doesn't feel like a very blue season to me. Feels like a very warm-toned season. So I've included a couple of blues, but this is my deepest blue. I think I'm going to get some backgrounds in here, but maybe that'll be interesting. The paper I'm using for the swatching is just Clairefontaine Gold Line aqua paper. It's 100% cellulose, so nothing special. But I really like it for just swatching. I think it has enough texture to show off granulation, and it performs pretty nicely in most applications. That being said, I said I had two blues, and this is the second one. You can see it in the palette. It looks quite vibrant, but it's a little bit softer, and it's Cobalt Ceylon Blue, which is often referred to as Cerulean Blue by some other brands. It's PB35, so it is a cobalt pigment, so it does granulate quite nicely. But it's this sort of warm-toned, light blue tone. It's quite fresh, but I think that it really evokes that feeling of the skies that you get in autumn when it's sunny in the morning and it's crisp and you have still this sort of clear warmth to the sky. Maybe it's still a bit warmer later in the day and you can see that coming through. And I think that that is a really nice complement to the other blue. Plus, I think it would mix really interesting mixes. If you wanted some interesting granulating light greens, then this would make a really lovely choice for that. So hopefully it will be a good part of our autumn colour palette. You have to let me know in the comments, by the way, which colours you think of when you think of autumn. I'm always curious and I love to read all the comments and respond to them the day after I post the video. It's a really nice thing to see. And finally, for the cooler tones in this palette, I thought I wanted to include some kind of paler tone, and I thought I would include this grey titanium, Aquarius Grey, as it's called in Roman Szmal's range. And it's basically the same pigment as buff titanium, but with a few more impurities, so it has a cooler tone and a bit of a, well, it's grey, you know, it's not, it's not buff, it's grey. And I think it would be really good. I think of autumn forests with mossy rocks and waterfalls, and I think of this colour would be really helpful to mix some of those nice pastels. Plus, it also granulates really nicely, so it would be great for overcast skies, probably mixed with the indigo. And I think it just washes out so nicely. It's still a warm grey, so it's not completely a flat grey. I know that there's a couple of watercolour brands that make something like that. I think Holbein makes a grey of grey, and Sennelier also. I don't own any of those. I just watch a lot of swatching videos, which is why I make them. They bring me a lot of joy. Just looking at colours. But I really like this colour and I think it complements the others really well. So this is the cooler side of the colour wheel, and as I was saying, when you think of autumn, you quite often think of warm tones, so I have quite a lot of those going on, so we'll move on to those now. Maybe I'll start over here. And I'll start with Quinacridone Gold. Now this is going to be a very predictable suggestion. I would wager that if you asked anybody who uses watercolours which colours they would choose for an autumn palette, they would maybe 60% of people would say quinacridone gold. A lot of people have it on their palette just as one of their favorite colors, and who could blame them? Look at it, it's absolutely stunning. But I think that it's particularly good for autumn. Somehow it just really comes into its own in this season where you really want the warmer yellows, the warmer tones. And it also mixes really interesting greens. I am interested to mix this with the indigo and see what kind of a green we can get, like a really soft mossy green perhaps. And as you can see, it washes out into like a really interesting pale gold colour. I think that you can't go wrong with quinacridone gold. This version is the version of quinacridone gold that includes PY150, Nicolazo yellow, and the discontinued PO48. However, I think that all of the hues of quinacridone gold that I've seen have been absolutely beautiful. So whichever version you find, whichever version is affordable to you, is absolutely fine. So moving away from yellows, I have an orange up next, and the orange that I've chosen is Aquarius Orange. It doesn't have a pigment, but I do believe that Winsor & Newton also has a colour that uses a similar pigment, so I think that they called it, maybe theirs was transparent orange or something. And the pigment is like diketopyrrole orange. It's pretty light fast anyway, if that's the reason that you need a pigment number, which is important for a lot of people who sell their work, of course. But as you can see, it's a really warm orange. Warm orange? So with oranges, the warm and the cool gets a little bit confusing to me. It's a little bit more on the red side, put it that way. But I think it would be perfect for mixing to add those super warm tones into a leaf that's turning colour. I can see some leaves from my house right now, which I would use this colour to add just a bit of variation and interest. Maybe not by itself, but I think it's a stunning colour, and it really is so luminous and transparent. And then moving into the reds, I have quinacridone scarlet, which is another pigment that doesn't have a name. Another no pigment information colour. But it is a quinacridone pigment, and it's this lovely muted warm red. I think that this is one of my favourite reds. You'll hear me talk about that in a lot of my other videos. It's in my ultimate palette, which will be probably getting an update, by the way. Let me know if you'd like to see an update on that in the light of me using it for a little while and like the new colours that I've received recently, because I think that there's definitely some changes to be made. So it doesn't have a pigment number. I would be interested to compare this to Daniel Smith's Deep Scarlet. I do not have the money for Daniel Smith paints as it stands, but maybe when I'm rich and famous, I will get some and do a comparison for you. Or, I'm sure there's somebody else on the internet who's done it. But I love that this is a slightly more muted red. I think it really leans into those earthy autumn tones without being too brownish. Finally, for the reds, I picked a colour that I thought would be good for those really like end of autumn, last leaves attached to the tree, super deep red, sort of sycamore leaves. And I chose Perylene Maroon, which is also a bit of a warmer red. So, if you wanted a really nice purple out of this palette, I think you could probably use this one. Did I say warmer? I meant cooler. Brain's obviously still spinning up. I know it's the afternoon for me already, but apparently it's one of those days. I'm really excited. I'm going away this weekend to go hiking, and I expect I might try and film a little bit of footage while I'm there, so I can share that with you guys, because I think it will be beautiful. However, it is supposed to be like the worst weekend of the year so far, like 9 degrees C and raining, and anyway, I bought a new raincoat and the show must go on. But there are some really nice caves near me, relatively near me anyway, so I'm going to go and check those out, and I'm really excited to see. I think I've got a bit of a bleed going on here. But either way, before I got distracted, this Perylene Maroon is a really nice, useful, deep red. I think it's coming across a little bit warmer on camera. I'll try and show you a picture and a close-up at the end so you can see more true tone, exactly what colour these are when they're dry. I'm so excited to zoom out on this colour wheel and see how they all look together. But up next is Perylene Violet. This is another colour that I have waxed lyrical about many a time. I have an entire video just mixing with Perylene Violet, but it's a really intense reddish violet, and I think that it just speaks to me in terms of and being a very autumnal tone. I know it feels like I've got the whole colour wheel going on here in sort of a very rainbow fashion, but I do feel like there is a lot of colour going on in autumn. It's just maybe a little bit warmer and more muted than in summer. I find colours for summer quite hard. I know my limited colour palette video for summer, I ended up just choosing 4 colours and just doing mixes with them, which was a nice change, and I think it was a very interesting exercise. But for autumn, it was like I couldn't narrow it down, you know, like picking just 12 was hard. So I don't know. Maybe that's just me though, and my preferences. It certainly used to be my favourite season. It's sort of dropped down the rankings a little bit now. I dread winter so much, but it's not as bad as I remember. It's pretty good in autumn. Lots of beautiful stuff going on, and since I live in Germany now, when we have the Christmas markets in November and December, like that's really changed up how I feel about early winter as well, so that's been nice. And then for my final trick, I mean, just kidding, the final colour that I've chosen for my autumn colour palette, it's this Natural Umber Reddish, which is a new colour from Roman Szmal, but it is very much a sort of traditional burnt umber, just a bit on the warmer side, and I really love the tone of this paint. It really surprised me when I tried it out for the first time. And I just think that it's such a rich, beautiful colour, and I think it would be perfect for adding to just about any of these other colours to tone them down. Yeah, making those really nice mossy greens, making a nice grey, like deep grey black probably with the indigo, and just a wonderful mixer, I think. And it also has some really nice texture to it. Sorry, my swatches are getting a little bit messy. It's kind of hard to paint in a triangle. Plus I'm trying to do this under the camera, which is also not the easiest maneuver, if anyone's ever tried it. So we're a little bit on the sloppy side today, but you know, watercolour discourages perfectionism. Either or, I think this earth tone is so beautiful. I always included another red earth or like a red ochre or a burnt sienna, but decided against it in favour of including this to give us more mixing options. So this is our beautiful autumn colour wheel, and hopefully you can see where I was going now with all of these colours together. But before I end the video, I think we should definitely try out some mixes. So I'm just going to choose my the ones that make most sense to me. I think I'm primarily going to be mixing some more sort of secondary colours. And I think I'm going to start with mixing the Perylene Maroon and the Indigo, because I made myself curious when I said that we could mix nice purples with this pairing. And there's a little bit of space here on the paper for us to do this. It's the Indigo. I don't know how strong it is. Haven't mixed with this at all yet. Oh wow. Well, that's a lovely colour, isn't it? Super deep grey purple. I'm going to make a little swatch of that actually because I love it so much. And if anyone wants to be reminded of which colours I chose, I will put them in the description box down below, because I don't think there's an easy way for me to write them on this piece of paper that I've made for my swatching. But that's a lovely neutral indigo purple. And how about a little bit more red? Oh yeah, that's nice. It looks maybe a little bit too much like the Perylene Violet, so I'll just take a tiny bit more indigo. Sometimes it's a struggle to find the balance when you're colour mixing, but you get there eventually. Don't worry, I'll clean up these colours afterwards. I always hate contaminating my colours, but sometimes it's got to be done, you know, you can't wash your brush off so often. And then I'm just going to paint this one out. Yeah, this is a really, really lovely muted purple. I would love this. I really am not a fan of bright purples to begin with, but this is like a very muted grey purple, which I particularly adore. Feels very autumnal to me. So to move into something that I think will be a little bit brighter, I'm going to mix the quinacridone gold. It's such a beautiful colour. I can't get over how beautiful quinacridone gold is every single time I use it. And I'm going to mix a little bit of the indigo with that. Oh wow, that's like a mossy sap green. That's what that looks like to me. That's really amazing. Let's see what range of tones we get when we paint that out. Yeah, see, this looks like just a smoother version maybe of the autumn green. The autumn green looks a little bit like this in mass tone, but this will obviously not be so granulating, colour separating, so if that's what you're in the market for, then maybe this would be a better option. I think it's a lovely mossy tone. Really perfect for all of the different types of moss we see in the forest these days. I found a place in the forest when I was on a hike the other day where there were 4 different types of moss all like meeting in one location. Felt like a very special moment somehow. I don't know, maybe that's just me. But I love to see. I love going outside and seeing all the nature, especially this time of year. So let's see if we can mix a nice deep black tone because we don't have that in our colour wheel. So I'm going to take some of this natural umber, reddish. And I'm going to mix it with the indigo. The indigo does have some black pigment in it already, but it's kind of clearly more on the blue side, this indigo at least. So I'm expecting that this will work really well. Oh, wow. And it did. Look at that. That's a stunning smoky sepia colour. So we'll have a little bit of that on the paper so we can refer to that later. And I'm going to add a little bit more blue, see if we can get a deep grey. That's just a really, really beautiful dark brown. Sorry if my voice is a little bit croaky. There's a lot of bugs going around. I'm not sick again yet, touch wood, but yeah, you know, it's that time of year. And I'm saying the phrase time of year a lot in this video, but I guess that's kind of to be expected for a seasonal colour palette video, but this is a lovely grey. This is a little bit less, this is a bit different to what I was expecting. I wasn't expecting it to be so green toned, but I can't say I'm disappointed. That is really nice. And I think that if you needed a dark tone for foliage or water, murky water, then this would be a great choice. And there's a couple of other colours I wanted to try and mix, like a nice stony beige. So I think I'm going to mix some of this natural umber reddish with a little bit of the Aquarius grey. See where that gets me. I just like the idea of making these pastel colours. I played around with using different white pigments to make pastel mixes, so if you want to watch that video, then you can find that on my channel as well. I've made quite a lot of colour mixing videos at this point. It's been a while since the last one, but I'm sure we'll be back with another one any day now. But this is a really nice soft beige. You could almost use this to paint like animals, like you got like a soft bunny rabbit. It's a bunny rabbit beige. If I started making paints to sell, you know that they would all have names like bunny rabbit beige. Nobody would take me seriously, but it would be fun. And then finally, I think, because it's nice to focus on the muted tones because of how bright the colours in this palette are, I think we can experiment with mixing the Perylene Violet, which is just such a beautiful colour, by the way. Every time I look at this colour, I'm amazed. Roman Szmal's Perylene Violet is not my favourite Perylene Violet. My favourite is Schminker's, but the Roman Szmal one is more affordable. And I'm going to mix it with some of the Palaroline Green Deep. Let's see what colour we get. Okay, that's beautiful. Definitely, I don't know, it's like a weird, it's another like browny grey. I think if you mixed a little bit of the blue in that, then maybe it'd be better. Just take it a little bit more in the green direction. This is another beautiful neutral mix. There's a lot of beautiful neutral mixes here. Slightly different to the other one, but not significantly. Wouldn't matter which one you used. And then I think I'm going to mix the cerulean blue, so the cobalt sealant blue, as Roman Szmal calls it, with the Hansa yellow. So this will be a very, very bright light green. But sometimes leaves go this colour before they change, and I think it's nice to show that you can get super bright, vivid mixes. This is a very acidic lime green here, and I think it will be interesting to see when it dries whether that blue granulates out. So I'll probably add a little bit of water to it so it can move around. Granulating colours always do better with a little bit more water. If you'd like to see any other mixes, then do let me know, because maybe I'll include them in an upcoming video or put them in a community post for you. I just don't really have the time or the space to do it all, do all of the possible mixes today, as much as I'd love to. So here is our beautiful scene. Here are the paints that I used for this video, the mixes as they appeared on the palette. I always love looking at these palettes. Sometimes it's hard to wash them off. And then this is the sheet with our colours. So you can see the colour wheel here. You can see the colours a little bit more accurately maybe than when they were wet. They are at most only slightly damp now. You can see the beautiful texture in these three at the bottom, with the sealant blue, the Aquarius grey, and the natural umber reddish. They have this lovely granulating texture. And then also in the autumn green, the other colours are mostly on the flat, smooth side. And then here are some of our secondary mixes. Feel free to go back in the video if you can't remember which colours I was mixing. But I think that these are some absolutely fabulous muted colours. I am falling back in love with autumn, no pun intended, and I hope you enjoyed looking at all these colours with me today. You will have to leave me a comment and let me know what colours you would have chosen, if any of these are not, were a surprise to you, or whether you disagree with me. Let's have a conversation in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe if you enjoyed this video. It really helps the channel out, and I love this community that we are growing here. And with that, I will see you in the next video. Bye, everybody.